One Christian believes that they can have a glass of wine and they're fine with it. Another Christian believes that they should not drink at all. Well, the Christian, this woman believes that she should not ever have any alcohol, ever. So she's out with her friend, and her friend's just continually, why don't you drink? Why don't you drink? Why don't you have a glass of wine?
This is a Truth Transforms Truth Nugget. A daily dose of truth for your daily transformation.
I think Christians should make decisions in a different way than the world. And so that's something just to think about. I think we need to make decisions that will, with the mindset of what will best glorify God. So certainly we should plan, we should make plans, and we should work those plans, but we better be sure to be prayerful in making the plans. We need to be sure that all of our plans are submitted to God's will. So we've seen the praise of self through prideful planning, pride revealed by ignoring God when making plans, purposeful planning that comes from a life that is submitted to the will of God. Now we see in the next two verses we're called to a pursuit of integrity. Pursuit of integrity, verses 16 and 17. As it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. And so whoever knows the right thing to do but fails to do it, for him it is sin. So James here condemns the prideful planner for boasting. We've gone through that a lot, but he calls it evil. So planning apart from God is indeed sinful, so we need to make sure that we're very prayerful in the plans and the decisions that we make. And then now he addresses sins of commission and sins of omission, verse 17. So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin. Now this could be a sin of commission or it could be a sin of omission. Sin of commission, of course, is something that's explicitly wrong in Scripture. Explicitly wrong, like sinful speech or anything that we've talked about recently. You should not insult. Clearly, that's a sin of commission. Don't do that. It's mostly dealing with a sin of omission, I think. A sin of omission, which would be things that we know we need to do that we don't do. We know we need to do them that we don't do. The Great Commission certainly is one of those. That's why the Great Commission is often called the Great Omission in the Christian world, because unfortunately many don't do it a whole lot. And so that's certainly a sin of omission. And then there maybe someone's working for a company and they find out that there's illegal activity going on at the company. Well, they know they need to report that. And if they don't, that would certainly be a sin of omission. That would be knowing the right thing to do but not doing it. And then there are times when it's a little more subjective. It's a little more an area of personal conscience, personal conviction. And so we'll just throw out there an example of having a drink of wine. We know the Scripture clearly condemns drunkenness, but Scripture does not explicitly condemn having a drink of wine. Now, is it wise? That's another sermon. But is it sinful to have a drink of wine? Well, Scripture doesn't explicitly state that. Obviously, we know that Timothy had alcohol for a medicinal purpose, made a lot weaker, obviously. But you should never enter into the place where you get drunk. But anyway, just to use that example, one Christian believes that they can have a glass of wine and they're fine with it. Another Christian believes that they should not drink at all. Well, the Christian, this woman believes that she should not ever have any alcohol, ever. So she's out with her friend, and her friend's just continually, why don't you drink? Why don't you drink? Why don't you have a glass of wine? Well, if she has a glass of wine, she's just sinned. Because her conviction is not to drink. And she broke her conviction. She did not do what was right for her, and therefore she sinned. I would say that the friend sinned also if she's a Christian because she threw a stumbling block up for her friend. But again, that's probably another sermon. But the point is, there are deep convictions that God will give us, and we need to follow in those convictions. So if we know the right thing to do, but we do not do it, it is sin. And it can be a sin individually for us. That's the whole point of this. It's an individual sin for us that doesn't necessarily have to be a sin for somebody else. So whatever you may feel convicted about, you need to go to the Lord in prayer, and you may need to take steps with that conviction, knowing that if you don't follow in that conviction, it is indeed a sin before God. That's what we see there. That's why this verse, which is connected to the previous verses, it is connected to planning, and I'm going to get more in the direct context, but this verse can be certainly a standalone. This could be a whole series on doing the right thing when you know you should do it, and if not, it is sin. But it does connect to the previous verses. It seems that the word "so" connects it here. So that means that our planning should be done in a way that is submitted to God, and that we're doing that out of conviction, that we know the right thing to do, we know the right things to plan, we know the right course of a path to take, and so indeed we should do it, and if we don't, it is sin. So James is saying that when it comes to making our plans, we must be in submission to God's will. And if we know the right thing to do, we must do it. If we know the right thing to do in our planning but fail to do it, it's sin. Essentially saying it's not enough to know what is right, we must do what is right. And Romans 14:23 seems to be referenced here. Romans 14:23 says something very similar. It says, "For whatever does not proceed from faith is sin." Whatever does not proceed from faith is sin. So that seems to say that if you're not sure if what you're about to walk into, what you're about to do, you're not really sure if it might be a sin, then you better not do it, because that would be sinning. We must be walking by faith and living by faith. The area of Christian freedom is that we are free to follow God in our own pursuit, and there are going to be areas that for some people are sinful and for others are not, that aren't explicitly stated in Scripture. But we need to follow God and follow these clear convictions. So we must respond to God's clear conviction. We must walk in obedience, and God may test us in this. And when we're tested, we should remember His words in Luke 16:10, where He said, "He who is faithful in a very little is also faithful in much." He's looking to test us and make sure that we're faithful in all areas of our life.
Well, I do pray that was a blessing. Now do me a favor, and if you enjoyed today's Truth Nugget, go ahead and hit that like button. That really does help to spread this to more people. Also, if you're new to the channel, you've joined us in the middle of a series on the book of James. And you can find all of the Truth Nuggets on the book of James in a playlist that'll be available in the description and also on the channel homepage. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next episode.